I think billionaires will come out of the influencer space for sure.
Oh, for sure.
As soon as there's a product that it's aligned with his audience and it's aligned with him and it's getting them there, I see it being, these influencers, the next Elon Musk. I mean, these are visionary people that can disrupt the world with technology and everything that's out there just by their leveraging their audience in a very unique way.
This is Creative Disruption, the intersection where entertainment, data, and creativity meet. Here's your hosts, Ricky Ray Butler and Derral.
All right, welcome back to the Creative Disruption Podcast, where we talk about everything that's disrupting the industry and people that are actually doing it. I'm joined here by my friend and cohort. We always say cohort.
You do.
I love it because we're like,
yes.
You're my heart. My heart belongs to you, Ricky. Ricky Ray Butler, how you doing?
I'm doing awesome.
So, Ricky, we have been doing this for a while, the podcast, and we're both super busy and we have a lot that's going on. Why do you do this? What's the reason behind it? You just want to be famous, like TikTok famous, or what do you?
Yes, it's all about being famous.
Is that what it is?
It's one of those things where it forces me to learn more about what's happening in our industry, but also it's a good place to kind of just share different ideas and different things that I'm seeing, and so. To be honest, it's really for me to learn as much as I possibly can.
Because I know
I'm a little
it is. I think both of us are obsessed with learning. We're always trying to figure out, okay, what's going on here? What's going on there?
I mean, I wish we could do it even more often. I mean, and we've talked about this. In the future, we're going to start doing this more remotely. Maybe I have the guests with me in LA and you chime in.
I see how you are. You're like, I'll have the guest with me and you just be in your closet in the basement of your house.
Yeah. I mean, I don't work from home.
Either do I.
but no, I'm traveling a lot too. And so I think that'll probably be the next phase for us.
Yeah. Just kind of do it more mobile.
Cause I'm in London often. I'm in New York often. I'm starting to be in China a lot more often.
I think the reason why, I wanted to do it with you in the sense of the podcast was because, we do have a lot of connections and we do love the business. We've been in the business since the beginning.
Oh, yeah.
And I kind of want to talk about that for a little bit because we've been able to see the evolution of this digital space, and there's a lot that's happened since then. I mean, I can't even imagine when we first was in that basement, with Devin Graham and all those other people, getting things going, and it was really interesting to see.
Before Devin even had a thriving YouTube channel, my company, which was Plaid before I sold it to Ben. We actually hired Devin on several projects just to do edits for us.
Exactly. I mean, and then he was doing some edits for Aurabrush and all that other stuff. But no, I find it fascinating that the digital landscape's changed so much. But there's certain things in business that just don't change. And I found that a lot of these creators try not to do business models. They're like, I'm just a creator, I'm going to do it. And I've seen them come and go. I've seen creators that are super passionate about their creation, but they don't have business practices.
Sure.
And that's where they fall short. And if they don't pivot to that, then they just kind of come and go. I mean, have you seen a lot of that in this industry?
I've not seen that just with creators, because that's obviously a thing with creators, but also with businesses that have started in this industry. There's been a lot of rises and falls of different businesses. And it's not necessarily because they just jumped on a trend that didn't really last, is because there's a lack of business acumen.
Yeah.
A lot of people are being very emotionally driven, very hype driven, when really they should have been very data driven, monitoring profits
100%.
and being able to, build business models to be able to build up pipelines and make, projections on how successful they could be if they scale what they're doing.
Yeah.
And so I think it's both with the creator and with the businesses. Yeah. I think, it's funny. We're kind of winging this. And this
we never ever wing anything. This is all about conversations that we're interested in.
Yeah. Well, really what it comes down to, to answer your question again, it's really fun just to take time to geek out.
No, I love
it. And it's hard to be able to find that during the day while you're in meetings. I'm always that person that goes into tangents, and my own team tells me, okay, let's cool.
Let's move on.
Let's not talk about this right now. Let's get this other stuff finished.
No, but I think there's a lot that's going on. I think the digital age has definitely disrupted, business and also creators. And ultimately there are some certain principles in business that creators and businesses need to have, especially with the transformation of, the industry. So one of the things for me is I have employees that are in the Philippines, and it's what's really nice about it is that, once the workday's done, they're actually starting there. And so we're almost having a 24/6 work schedule, where people are just kind of passing off the work to them and they're able to go from there. But I think it makes the world footprint a lot, not as big.
Well, the thing is, it has to be that way. Like, we're now seeing like this, content revolution of globalization of content.
Yeah.
Where it's not just, every country has their own content. A lot of the world is watching the same content.
Yeah.
And so, very similar to you with like the Philippines, we have a Shanghai office, and we have our European office, and a New York office, a Utah office, and a California office.
Utah office.
And there's strategy behind that.
I
believe our Utah office speaks around like 25 languages.
That is crazy.
And so when we're doing stuff in APAC and the people in APAC go to sleep, our London team takes over. And when they go to sleep, our Utah team takes over, and they speak a lot of languages, both languages in APAC and in EMEA. And that's just how things work. In order to hit deadlines, you need to have multiple teams working on projects. And so there's a lot of, globalization of content that's happening, and it's now becoming a lot more diversified where, you're having to also get very specific, not just to countries or regions, but now localization is starting to happen when it comes to creators and influencers. And so we actually have a lot of clients now that want to do stuff in New York.
Yeah.
Or want to do stuff in San Francisco. And that's starting to become more and more of a trend.
And I think the thing that I want to kind of focus in on just for a little bit is, to really succeed in the digital space today, whether you're a creator or a business, what do you need to do? Like, at the end of the day, what do you need to do? And I think part of it is from the creator side. You see these creators that are just in their heyday. They're making a ton of money. They don't put business principles in, and ultimately they'll hit their plateau and they start dipping down, and then they start being frantic. And then that's when they reach out to me and they're like, "Hey, we need help because we just don't have the ability to produce what we were producing before and get the same results." And so, what are some tips that our viewers could take away from this? Like what are some of these principles that they need to do, whether they're a creator or a business, to survive in business in the digital age?
Yeah. So I see this as like a circle that people need to have.
So wait, it's not the triangle.
No, yeah,
it's not the triangle.
So I think it first starts at the top.
Yeah.
You got to have vision.
Yep.
And then from there, you got to have a plan.
Yep.
And then from there, processes, data-driven processes to help you execute that plan at scale. And then, towards the top of the vision again, meaning. There has to be purpose.
Yeah.
There has to be something that's driving it. And so for me, when I started Plaid back in the day, which was one of the first companies to really help pay creators with sponsorships and with brands.
Is that why you wear the plaid shirt there?
Sure. Actually, I hated the name. I was outvoted by my business partners.
I didn't mean to interrupt you.
I bought them both out, and I stuck with the name.
There we go.
But one thing that just drove for me, one of the things that has helped drive me and my team is, our vision was that creators were the future of television.
Yeah.
We just knew that was coming, and we were very fortunate that we bet on the right industry and the right approach. But our purpose in our meeting was that we thought it was a beautiful thing that we could empower art.
Yeah.
And that we can empower artists. I consider myself a creative person. I consider myself an artist. Not good enough to make money, but there's a lot of satisfaction to be able to help art. And why is that important? Well, what's one of the most important things that's a reflection of culture and history?
Exactly.
It's art.
Exactly.
And so, once in a while, like, I'd have employees that say, "Oh, I'm just pushing another video game," or like we're launching this beverage, like, not a big deal. And for me, like, I was like, no. This is a huge deal because this brand is empowering artists to create.
Yeah.
And one thing that we're not seeing right now in the next 10 years, 100 years, 1,000 years, I believe that there's going to be a very strong artistic footprint that comes from this community.
I definitely agree with that. And I think that there's the
Michelangelos of the future are creating video.
But I think the big thing about it is a lot of this art is now backed by data. And I think the biggest mistake that creators make and brands make is they're not paying attention to the data.
100%.
And I geek out over data, and you know how much I geek out over data. I really do. But at the end of the day, it's like when you're taking art and data and you're combining it, that's when something magical happens because you're able to validate what works. And so let me kind of explain where I think a lot of businesses and creators make mistakes in the digital age. Is they're not really sensitive to three aspects, which is, how's the acquisition going to happen? How are they acquiring new viewers or new customers,
subscribers, buyers?
Exactly. That retention of the viewer or the subscriber or buyer or, customer, and then the churn. If they're not focusing in on those three areas, then ultimately they're out of balance, and something's going to happen where one day they're like, oh my gosh, I'm out of business, or, oh, we've depleted so much, we need to start laying off people because we weren't paying attention to those metrics. But what's interesting though, from me as as working with creators and brands, like focusing in all three elements makes your business a lot more solid, and as a creator makes better content because you're like, okay, what's the best way to acquire a new view? Let me give you an example of this. And we had a podcast, and you can find that, on our podcast with MrBeast. But what was fascinating was when we were going through his data and looking at what would acquire a new subscriber, and we found a pattern. And this is all about this is where I think the industry is going. It's like, how can we take all this unstructured data, structure it in a way that we can learn from it, or have machine learning to tell us the stuff.
Contextualize it.
Exactly. And we can make decisions based off of that. And I was going through it, and I have a pattern, what I do with all my clients. And I go through this pattern of how I start recognizing specific data points.
Yeah.
And I turned to him, I says, you know what? I found a way that you're getting 4x more subscribers, that you're acquiring 4x more subscribers than any other videos. And he goes, no, all my videos are that way. I'm like, no, Jimmy, it's not that way. And we broke it down, and it was this. It was really simple. We were able to take all the videos, and we were able to group them together, and we were able to pull different data points. And we realized when he was actually giving away money to random people out in the wild, he got 4 times more subscribers. He got the same amount of views, but he got 4 times more subscribers. And so ultimately, that was one stage. That was the acquisition stage. Now the retention, there's other things that would retain it, and what he would do into the videos. And then that churn rate too. What we found fascinating is when someone would find him, if he released 4 videos in a given month, the average person would watch 6 videos. That means they'd actually go into his library and watch multiple videos that would be served out to him. So they actually have that. But there was that churn of how long do they stay into the ecosystem? How many videos are they actually doing? And that data isn't necessarily available. And so as data is available, these creators are able to pivot and say, okay, why are they leaving my YouTube channel? Why are they leaving the videos? How can we learn from that to make better videos to keep them on longer? And so I think for platforms to be around longer is giving the tools that are necessary, or the creators and businesses are creating their own tools to get those data points. And I know your business has done a lot with this.
Well, I mean, specifically around MrBeast, we have machine learning algorithms or deep learning algorithms that helps us contextualize the content on individual channels.
Yeah.
And so actually something that I talked to you and Jimmy about is that, I believe our AI has told us that Jimmy has 50 different series on his channel.
Yeah.
And so we're not looking at, okay, which video causes the most subscriber growth. I mean, that's something that we could do, but for us, we're just saying, okay, based on the theme that he's going to be creating, what is most likely going to be successful when it comes to clicks, when it comes to views, and potentially, conversions.
Right. Well,
and what we've learned is, there's such a high variety of content on his channel that we want to be able to see what his concept is, and then we bucket it in one of those series that he creates.
Yeah, it's interesting, and I think a lot of creators can learn from data. And there's certain creators that could care less about the data. Like, I don't care less. I care more about the viewer. But the data is a reflection of the viewer. Like, you can literally see every little aspect
if you want
of
to
that
know
relationship.
How people are feeling and how to connect with them when they're feeling that way, you have to follow the data and understand what they're thinking. And it happens on both the brand side and the creator side. I know creators that are always shooting in the dark saying, oh, this is a creative idea. I'm going to go and do this.
Yeah.
And once in a while, they'll get these really, really successful videos, and other times it would crash. And I mean, they'd have to really figure things out and optimize in order to become successful creators. It happens with brands.
Yeah.
You know, like if there's a company that comes out there, or if there's like a CMO or a marketing director that says, hey, we got to do one viral video, you have to question, you know, if that person is being data driven or emotionally driven.
Emotionally vanity driven. It's like, I got a client not too long ago, so about a year ago, and they're like, hey, would you come look at our socials and really do a deep dive and see the analytics? And I says, okay. And they're like, we're really proud of what we've done, and it's been so great.
So I'm like, they're like pushing their bias onto you.
They totally were. And I'm like, okay. And I says, I'm going to look at it and I'm going to give you a report. So it's like a whole audit, and I do these audits, and I go in and just kind of analyze what they're doing, what they can improve on, you know, and really optimize for the audience. And they're like, yeah, we've been spending a lot of money and we're just getting a lot of engagement, and it's just so great. But for some reason now it's just dead, you know? And so that's when they usually call me, like, we need some help. So I went in there and I was starting to analyze every video and everything from there. And I really noticed this really abnormal amount of views that were coming from certain part of the world. And I'm like, well, I can pretty much tell you what was going on here. And, you know, because it was
digital marketers gaming it.
It was for vanity. It was like they were buying views. And, you know, some were paid ads and some were, you know, click farms. But ultimately, they just for that metrics, and they didn't really have an audience. Even though they had 7 million, you know, followers, they really didn't have an audience, because when they'd release a video, they'd get maybe 20 engagements, post engagements on Facebook. Maybe, you know, and like, where was that coming from? And I think that is true. I think, you know, as creators or businesses, we need to be true and authentic to the data.
Yes.
And if you really want the reach, yes, you can put a blended strategy and hit more people, but it should be the people that would be most apt to engage with your views or the content, and not just for views, for the numbers.
Why do they need to look at the data? Well, that's where the truth is.
Yeah.
And what's truth going to bring you? Success.
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah. Or a lot of disappointment.
Yeah, or a lot of disappointment. and so, you know, there's I think there's like a thing where I think a lot of people, they look at marketing like gambling.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, let's throw a bunch of money here. Let's throw a bunch of money here. Oh, that's a new trend. Let's throw a bunch of money there. And that's very dangerous.
It is so dangerous.
What it should be about is not finding that moment of success. It should be about consistently having moments and consistently building success.
I mean, would you?
And then every month becoming stronger and more successful.
Yeah. Would you, as a brand, let's just take it as a brand, would you rather get 1 million views on a video, or would you rather have 1,000 views that they completed the video and have taken action? Action at the end of the day. I mean, that's where, like, that's the return on investment. Is like when you can get them to go through it. Because like getting 1 million views on Facebook's not that difficult. Because getting 3-second views, I mean, you just got to get enough eyeballs going through their feed and it starts. Now, what you want to do is get them to the end. And I would rather pay more money to actually have them take an action than to have a view. Because if we can define the audience as saying this audience would actually engage with the video, get to the end, have the call to action, click on the video, go to a landing page or within the landing page within in Facebook and take action to purchase, wouldn't you rather want that?
Yeah. Well, so this is my question for you. Why do you think there's so much more money now getting pushed into the creator community and into content?
Well, I think these creators are trusted and they actually have an audience that actually will watch their videos instead of an ad going up.
So that's what it comes down to. Brands are starting to become much more data driven and they're noticing patterns.
Yeah.
there's a much big difference in pattern when it comes to a casual viewer that you pay to get in front of.
Yeah.
And a viewer that's a loyal, trusting, captivated viewer.
No.
And when it comes to conversions, when it comes to engagement, when it comes to clicks, the loyal viewer is going to be the viewer that does something and takes action.
Exactly.
And so we're seeing a huge trend now where brands are now realizing, okay, instead of trying to get as much reach on Twitter as possible, where I work with 5 different Twitter accounts and like put $300,000 behind it, so a bunch of people see these random tweets, they're realizing, well, wait, we need to be a part of that organic engagement where loyal, trusting people are watching us and trust the person that's delivering the message. And then from there, you know, there's gonna be more engagement, more clicks, more conversions. But what's even the more exciting about this is now that there are literally millions and millions of content creators out there, brands could literally work with thousands of creators a month and see the same impact or more of an impact than they would get from one Super Bowl commercial.
You know, and I think too, brands are getting the memo. And what I mean by that is they realize, okay, we can work with thousands of different creators to really get our brand out there. And then
instead of 12, which most are still doing.
And two, then they can actually have brand ambassadors and build their own channels, right? And what's interesting is that blended approach, you know, because where it's a little bit more authentic, less corporate, you know, a little bit more authentic, a little bit more real. I've been able to see these brands really have some major digital growth because it's like authentic.
Yeah. Now, this is where you have to be careful with brand ambassadors. How are you going to be data driven? And so this is actually, I think, a big problem. And I think this is actually the area with the most confusion in our industry. People say, okay, well, yes, I'll work with a variety of influencers, but I want to have 3 influencers that I work with, you know, every month. No. Let me clarify where I'm going with this. A lot of times, brands are just thinking, okay, I'm just going to get these different people that have the best affinity with our brand. Well, on a high level, that makes sense. Okay, you have affinity. They look good. You know, you guys, you know, have a good
time. They talk the talk. They walk the walk.
But still, the question is, how much data are you really looking at?
Yeah.
And so sometimes brands will choose, you know, one brand ambassador without really finding out if that person's passionate about working with them, or if they have a healthy audience, or, you know, if they're really going to be putting the time and having the time to really create something magical with them.
Right.
And so what we've realized is how you got to do it is you first work with a good variety of different creators. And you put together a strategy and a plan where you're going to create something that grows. And then that's where the blended approach comes. After working with a larger sample, figure out who's converting the most, whose audience is the most passionate about what your product is doing. And then what do? You become data-driven.
Yeah.
You've worked with a variety and you're like, okay, based on the 50 different creators that we worked with, these 5 just crushed it. They give us love. They were really passionate. Their audience reacted, clicked, and like bought the product. How can we help grow them so they can help grow us?
Yeah, and I think the point that I'm getting at is, yes, I get that portion, and that's great.
You have to dance before you get married.
It's true. But what I'm saying is brands are now creating their own socials. Mm-hmm. They're hiring someone to come on and be their ambassador with no following. They have no following, but they're taking customer data that they already have. They know the common things that are related. They're taking that data.
When you say ambassador, I think of like spokesperson.
Right.
Okay.
And
so you're someone that actually manages their account.
Actually, they manage their account. They come on and they're building their own social following with that person as the influencer for that company.
Okay, cool.
You know, and so what's interesting from that, and this is where I'm saying a lot of brands are succeeding, is they're taking okay, who's actually converting? Because they have all that data in the customer base.
Sure.
And they're like, okay, how do we attract more people? So it's that acquiring stage and that retention stage that they're actually developing a very solid strategy. And I've worked with brands that they actually will sit down, go through that data, put a plan. Okay, this is how we're going to communicate with our said, potential audience. This is what it's going to look like. And then they take a blended approach where they're blending in some influencer integrations, which is getting that crossover coming into their own platform. And ultimately, they're getting more and more views organically that they don't have to pay for or work with an influencer to do.
Yeah,
like, 100%. Why wouldn't you want to do that?
And eventually, the platforms are going to figure out how to ding them because they're a brand.
Exactly.
But I think what you said is perfect. It's great. Like, in order for brands to evolve with this ever-changing world of content, they have to create content like the content creators.
Well,
it's an opportunity for them to be able to not just create commercials, but to create content that's valuable and educational and collaborate with people that are going to be very proud to work with them.
And I agree with that. And I look at like the best example is the entrepreneur Elon Musk.
Yes.
Okay, let's just break him down.
100%.
It's like he is the brand. And whatever he does, I mean, I don't even know how many businesses he has, like 5 or 10 or 20 or whatever it is. But he is the brand, and he can push, he can push whatever. He could push a flamethrower that's not a flamethrower. Yeah. It's just like, it doesn't matter what it is because he is that influencer that is influencing whatever project he's passionate about.
What's so crazy about it is that he is so raw and organic.
Yeah.
He's making a lot of mistakes and getting a lot of controversial stuff happening. But
is that a bad thing?
People are forgiving him. Yeah. They're okay with it.
I don't see that being a bad thing.
It's gaining probably more momentum for him than anything.
I mean, you look at the Tesla stock and whether you agree with it or not.
It's killing it.
It's killing it. And the reason why
SpaceX is killing it. Most of his projects are doing amazing.
Exactly. And I think the whole thing is everything has to do with the vision, right? So at the end of the day, it doesn't matter. I mean, you're going to take the data what it is, but the vision is what engages people and gets them in line. And you take the data because he knows, I guarantee you, he knows how to play it up on Twitter. Yeah. I guarantee he's like, okay, this meme or this whatever is going to, engage this specific audience. And he's engaging his haters too, because it's like polarization marketing, right?
Yeah.
But I don't know.
Which for some reason works really well on the platforms.
It doesn't necessarily.
They cater to, the algorithms cater to polarization.
I think some of the things that he posts is like, okay, this might be borderline when you have a public company. Like, he's gotten in trouble in the past with that. But I do believe that brands and creators really need to look at the data and really make data-driven decisions.
Well, they need to be data-driven in their decision-making, but they also need to be data-driven in their process.
Yeah.
This is the thing. When it comes to growth, yes, you have to follow the data, but you have to have a process that helps you scale.
I agree with that 100%. But I think the businesses in the digital age and the creators in the digital age, they need to work together. So I mean, there's business principles that creators need to sustain for long term, and there's things that the creators do that the business need long term. And I think it comes back down to this. And you can disagree with me on this all you want, but I truly do believe this. It's like we need systems and processes for creators. Yeah. Okay, business is the same, but business.
Well, that's how you make money.
Well, absolutely.
You help them create systems and processes.
That's exactly
to grow
right.
their channel. Yeah,
yeah, and then the flip side is businesses need to be more authentic and more real, and connect on a deeper level with the viewer. And I think when that
be okay with making mistakes publicly.
Exactly, it's like okay, they're really worried about the PR aspect. Well, really, come on, we live in a different age now. It's just how do you communicate it, and are you going to hide it, or are you going to just say, "Oh, yeah, I messed up"? Is that what it is? Come on. I think that's to really succeed in the digital age. It's like making data-driven decisions, but being authentic and having processes and systems. I mean, I think that's where it's at.
So I have a funny story with a client that we worked with that was in the fragrance industry, and it was a very humbling experience, and this is probably about 10 years ago.
Okay, this should be good. This should be really good.
You and I have both been in this space around 15 years.
Yeah.
But this is early days of Plaid, and we did this competition on Facebook amongst, different creators as well as like their audience, like anyone that's following the Facebook page.
Right.
And we did this little competition, and a couple of different micro influencers were really competing against each other to win. And some people did some sketchy things where they flagged content so we couldn't see everything.
Man. Okay.
And so like doing the judging was like kind of difficult. And so anyways, we had these two really high-end product. There's this one really high-end product that we're going to give away, and we ended up giving it to the wrong person because somebody was like gaming the page. I don't remember exactly what happened.
Oh, that's crazy.
And there was a huge backlash, and this audience just came after the page, came after, everyone involved, including the person that won and all their followers. Like there's like this civil war on this fan page. And I was like, oh gosh, what do we do here? And
this is on the brand's page, right?
It's not over yet. And so we were at the brand, we're like, okay, we're trying to figure out how to deal with this. And then we got down to the bottom of it, and we realized, okay, like someone else won by like one vote or like one like or whatever it was.
Did it have a hanging chad?
Yeah, I don't know. But and so this person was from a certain region in the world. And we're like, okay, well, what we're going to do is we're just going to give away 2 high-end products so they both win. Reasonable, right?
That would be a very reasonable call.
Yeah,
for sure.
Right? Because we're not just going to take it away from the person we already gave it to, Yeah. And so we get another product, prize, and we give it to the person that actually won by like 1 vote. And that created even a bigger backlash. And I'm not going to mention the culture or the region of the world, but there's an area of the world where tying is way worse than losing. And I'll just say it got crazy, and we had no idea how to deal with that situation. And so basically, all we could do is say, "Look, I give you your prize. Please talk to your audience and apologize on our behalf." And we apologized to everyone, and because like we didn't understand that nuance. It was just a totally different area, different culture that no one, not at the brand or at our company, understood.
Right.
And so we just literally went out, and the brand was okay with being like, okay, look, we made the mistake, super sorry. And after doing a really big apology, it calmed down. But like once we announced the tie, it became like World War III.
Lesson learned, talk to the creator first because he knows his audience, right?
Oh, absolutely. and so the creator's like, oh yeah, where we're from, tying is not good. And we're like, oh crap.
That's the same in my family too. Tying's not good.
Right. And so we thought we were being very reasonable, but we weren't being data-driven with the different regions of the world that we're working with because it was a global campaign.
Well, and I think that is the next stage of, surviving in a digital age is realizing that you're just not in your neighborhood. Like this is a global opportunity, and we need to look at it from a global lens. And, I've had clients that they've come on and they thought, okay, local first, but they soon realized based off the data that there's more, more opportunity globally because you 100%. Can get the right person watching the right video at the right time and taking the right action. Why wouldn't you want to do that? Because you can facilitate a sale a lot easier that way than trying to convince someone why to use you when they don't even want to use you.
100%. And that's one way of being very consistent, especially when working with creators, is just being consistent with the programming that's being well received.
Yeah, no,
and that's really important from a global level. But now that localizations and niche content in specific cultures is becoming very strong. When you're building a team to execute these types of campaigns, speaking the language is not good enough.
Yeah.
You need to
understand the culture,
the cultural nuances.
Yeah, it's really interesting because I have clients that want to translate in multiple languages. I says, okay, there's a difference between translating, and there's a you got to look at the things that are taboo and the cultural. I mean, like we both lived outside the United States, and what's interesting is that if you don't understand how that humor or that point that you're emphasizing is in that culture, you could make that faux pas of that fragrance. You could really offend, the culture, so it's not getting out to the right people. I don't know. I think that I think the Chevy campaign way back when, the Nova doesn't, in Spanish it means doesn't go. And they had to change it because it's like, hey, that's where it definitely means something different in different parts of the world. So let's talk.
Which happens a lot.
It does. It so much. And I think and I'll just say it, like, I think that there's a sense of arrogance with the US based creators and businesses that they want to push their culture on other cultures out there. And I think we need to be more sensitive to other ways, because if you're going to really see how it engages, we have the data now to see, what's going to be the best way to really grow and sustain, whether it's a business or a creator, on a global scale.
Yeah. So having the vision, looking at the data, making the plan, creating data-driven systems and processes, and then finding meaning in what you're doing.
Yeah, I think it'll be a very interesting 10, 15 years, because I think it is more about being authentic.
Yeah.
And I think that the creators that really succeed, that really take this world by storm, and also the businesses, are making those data-driven decisions.
So you feel, I feel like in the last couple of years, brands have done really well being authentic with creators. You think the next wave is them just being authentic themselves?
I do. I mean, I'm looking at the ones that are really pushing the envelope right now, and there's always someone behind that, right? So like whether it's a very eloquent CEO, or they're more creative and they're more public facing, I think you're going to see a lot of more influence coming from either upper management or someone that represents the company.
Cool. That's cool. What do you think is the next era of super brands? So, you have like the CPG companies, that have been around for over 100 years.
I think
you have like the tech companies, the platforms like Amazon.
I think the next is going to be kind of a blended. So I think that smart businesses that have a great business plan will sync up with a smart influencer.
Yeah.
And to be able to integrate with their audience, and build massive. I think billionaires. I think billionaires will come out of the influencer space for sure.
Oh, for sure.
And I look at. I mean, we've talked about him a lot, but MrBeast, for example. I mean, he will be a billionaire.
I agree. And he's sharp.
And it's just not the sharpness of it. It's just like he gets the vision of where he wants to be, and as soon as there's a product that it's aligned with his audience and it's aligned with him, and it's getting them there. I see it being, these influencers, the next Elon Musk. I mean, these are visionary people that can disrupt the world with technology and everything that's out there, just by their leveraging their audience in a very unique way. And it's not to say, like, I just read this article that I don't know what to think about it, but Jake Paul starting up a Freedom Academy. And I don't know what to think about that yet.
Yeah.
We'll let it play out.
Yeah.
But it's just like,
I'm seeing a lot of controversy around it on LinkedIn.
Yes.
Where people are like saying, call the Better Business Bureau.
Yeah.
I personally think I respect the ambition.
Yes.
I hope it's not a business plan to convince people not to go to school. I mean, well, I don't have a problem.
I'm not opposed to that. I mean, as long as their education's a part of their life,
sure.
I mean, you could be educated in so many different ways.
Absolutely. I mean, it'll just be interesting to see what it is and how it works. I think a lot of people are jumping to conclusions way too fast.
I would be one of them, because I'm like, okay, what is he really going to teach my kids? You know what I'm saying?
Sure.
Not that my kids would actually ever subscribe.
How much is he? I mean, he's basically like doing like life coaching.
Yeah, I think life coaching is like $19 a month, and it was like very specific, no set curriculum. And I'm not opposed at taking an entrepreneurial risk and jumping into it. What's interesting though is the opportunities that are created because of the influence, and what does that influence actually steer? The reason why we use that example is I think that there's going to be more things like this in the coming years, because brands would say, oh, here's an opportunity with an audience. What can we do? How can we synergize? I really believe the disruption that's going to happen in our industry is going to be with talent management. And I want to talk about this for a second, because I really do believe it. It's not what we can take from the talent. It's what can we synergize on? What can we bring to the table that would actually leverage the talent in a unique way? You know, whether it's like finding joint ventures that they're, you know, these opportunities that are coming on, and the talent management takes a cut, you know, and basically, you know, creates a marriage between the brand or whatever, or they actually build up a business that is able to support.
Or will it be talent managers, or will it just be employees that the talent hires?
I see both. There are some
that's happening right now.
It is.
Either, you know, creators that are hiring people to build their business, or they're getting managers to help them, and it really, to each their own.
Yeah,
I mean, it makes sense on both sides.
It just really depends on the threshold of the creator. If they just want to just have a hands-off approach, they just want to create and somebody else can manage, that's fine. And whether they hired internally or work with an agency.
Well, if you're able to build a following of tens of millions of followers, I mean, you're right. That's where, you know, the next billionaires are going to be made.
I do agree with that, because it's like, it doesn't matter what product, what service, as long as that authentic fill is there, that opportunity is just going to be bound. I mean,
and I think that's especially going to happen. I mean, one company I've been very impressed with is Tastemade.
Yeah,
they have content everywhere.
Yeah,
they're really big on Facebook. They're very big on Instagram. They're very big on YouTube. They're big on several Chinese platforms.
Yep.
They're on TV. They're on Hulu. They're on Roku.
Yep.
I mean, they're everywhere. I think as creators can figure out how to build like Tastemade has, that's where they're going to be making their billions, because Tastemade is launching a bunch of products now. And actually, we should have the founder on.
We should.
You know, I know him, and I'll connect with him, and we'll have.
No,
him on the
I think it'll be interesting
because he literally looked at it not as am I going to create something where I'm going to become famous. He just started launching as much content as fast as possible and got really good at it.
Yeah. One thing, so I have a business partner that I brought on for Vid Summit, Sean McBride, Sean Duras. And what I've been really impressed with this, and this is where I really do believe that people that can build an online following can evolve into $1 billion business.
Yeah, because he's doing well as esports now.
Oh my gosh, he is. They just won the world for Rainbow Six. It's crazy. But what's interesting is they take a raw, real approach at how to engage an audience. Right. And they're doing it on the back end. So here's some esports teams that spend hundreds of millions of dollars trying to engage an audience, where he's able to bootstrap it, come in and take over, different esports games, because he knows how to build an audience and he knows how to build a team, and that hype and that interaction. Yeah. It's so interesting.
Well, what's interesting, I mean, like Sean or like FaZe Clan, there are people doing it right.
Absolutely.
But there's a lot of brands saying, "Oh, we want to get into esports,"
and they throw money instead of.
Yeah, they're like, "We're gonna get on a T-shirt or something like that." And really, it's finding the teams that actually have distribution.
Yeah.
But more importantly, figure out what games align with your product.
Exactly.
And then work with a bunch of YouTubers and Twitch streamers.
So the deal is, and I guess the closing thoughts is, to really survive in the digital age, whether you're a creator or your brand, it's really understanding who the viewer is, what they care about, what they're passionate about, how it overlaps with what your brand stands for. And then ultimately look at ways to look at the data, so you're making data-driven decisions for the future, right?
Yeah. I mean, Ben is an AI company. And when you're building algorithms and different deep learning neural networks, a lot of times these algorithms have layers of different algorithms. I'm going to try to tie this back to like a business, but when you're a creator, it's understanding the viewer, understanding your follower, and making, first of all, content.
Yep.
And then making product.
Exactly.
Figuring out other ways to connect with them. And then in a way, you're kind of starting with your core business and then creating different layers of businesses on top of it.
I agree with that. So Wow, this has been a great discussion. I love it.
Our next podcast is starting soon.
Oh, we better do this.
We get rolling.
Thank you, everyone, for watching this podcast. Make sure you hit that subscribe button wherever you're listening or watching, and we'll see you on the next video.